The creature in chains, the market square of planet Veron 6 was always full of noise, colors, and strange smells. Aliens from many worlds came here to trade, argue, and show off rare items. But today the crowd was quiet. All eyes were on the center, cage. Inside the thick glowing bars was a beast. It stood almost twice the size of a man, covered in black fur with blue patterns that glowed like fire. Its eyes burned like molten gold. Its claws could tear through metal. Everyone in the crowd stayed far back. Even the guards held their blasters tight and looked scared. This was the terror beast, feared across 5 systems. And it belonged to an alien girl. She stood near the cage, quiet and alone. Her name was Sira, a young alien from the noble race called the Valari. Her skin shimmered like silver under the twin suns, and her long purple hair flowed like silk. She wore a hood and cloak, trying to hide from attention. But she couldn't hide the truth. She was the beast's master. Everyone whispered about her. She's cursed. She controls that monster with her mind. She watches people die and says nothing. But Sira just stood there, her glowing eyes locked on her creature. She didn't blink. She didn't speak. She didn't move. In the corner of the market, a human named Jake Rowan watched the scene. He was a ship mechanic just passing through Veron 6 for parts. Humans were still rare in this part of the galaxy, and most aliens didn't trust them. But Jake didn't care. He wasn't here to make friends. What caught his eye wasn't the beast. It was the pain in its eyes. The creature wasn't angry. It wasn't wild. It looked tired, hurt, alone. Suddenly, a guard hit the cage with an electric prod. The beast growled loudly, shaking the ground. The crowd screamed and backed away. The guard laughed and struck again. Jake stepped forward. "Hey," he shouted. "Stop that." Everyone turned. The crowd went silent. The guard blinked. Even Sira looked up. Jake walked toward the cage slowly, hands up to show he had no weapon. "Don't poke a creature just because it can't fight back," he said calmly. The guard frowned. "You have no idea what this thing is, human. It's not a pet. It's a killer." Jake didn't stop. He stood just a few feet from the glowing bars. The beast stared at him. No growling, no attack, just a deep, slow breath. Then something strange happened. The beast lowered its head. The crowd gasped. Sira's heart skipped a beat. No one had ever gotten this close and lived. Jake reached into his pack and pulled out a ration bar. He unwrapped it and gently slid it between the bars. The beast sniffed it, then took it softly in its huge jaws and chewed. Jake smiled. "See? Not a killer. Just hungry." Sira finally stepped forward. "You shouldn't be here," she said, her voice soft but firm. "He doesn't trust anyone. He will kill you next time." Jake turned to her. "Then why didn't he kill me this time?" Sira didn't answer. She just stared at him, confused and curious. Later that evening, Jake walked back to the shipyard, but he couldn't stop thinking about what happened. That look in the beast's eyes, the way Sira had watched him, not like a stranger, but like she knew something about him. He didn't know it yet, but this was no normal encounter. The beast had chosen him, and in doing so, it had just changed all their lives. Forever. A warning. Ignored. The next day, the sun on Veron 6 rose behind smoky orange clouds. The market was busy again, but something was different. Whispers ran through the crowd like a silent wind. "Did you hear? The human fed the beast. He's mad. No one gets close to it, and lives." Jake returned, this time with purpose. He carried a bag of tools and a small lunchbox. He walked past the fruit stands, past the plasma vendors, and straight toward the cage at the center of the square. The beast was waiting. It didn't growl. It didn't roar. It stood up slowly and moved toward Jake like it recognized an old friend. Sira stood nearby, her arms crossed and her eyes sharper than before. "You came back," she said flatly. Jake nodded. "I had some extra food. Thought your friend might like it." She tilted her head. He's not my friend. He's my punishment. Jake frowned. Punishment? Sierra didn't answer. Instead, she stepped closer. Her voice lowered. Listen. To me, human, I don't know why he didn't attack you yesterday, but he is not safe. He has killed before. Many times. Jake glanced at the beast, who was now sitting quietly behind the energy bars, looking peaceful. He doesn't look like a killer to me. That's because he has chosen you, Sierra said in a whisper, and that's the problem. Jake raised an eyebrow. Problem how? Sierra looked around to make sure no one was listening. Then she leaned in and said something that chilled his spine. If he bonds with you, truly bonds, the galaxy will hunt you both. Jake didn't know what she meant. But he wasn't the kind of man to walk away from someone, or something, that needed help. So he came back again, the next day, and the day after that. Each day he brought food, sometimes tools. Once he fixed a cooling pipe on the beast's cage with a few twists of his wrist. The guards started giving him strange looks. Other aliens stopped talking when he passed. Sierra never asked for his help, but she never told him to leave either. One day Jake sat near the cage, eating his lunch. Sierra stood beside him, in silence. No, Jake said between bites. You could eat too, I brought extra. She didn't move. I don't eat with humans. Jake smirked. Fair. Most aliens don't talk to humans either, but you do. There was a long pause. Then Sierra slowly sat down beside him. She took the food without saying thank you, but she ate. That was the first time Jake saw her smile. Just a little. The next evening, something changed. A high-ranking alien officer arrived at the cage. He wore black armor and a cold expression. His name was Commander Valak, and he worked for the Galactic Authority. Jake was nearby, wiping grease from his hands. Valak stared at the beast with disgust. Why is it still alive? One guard whispered. It's calmer lately, sir, since the humans started visiting. Valak turned sharply. Human? Jake stepped forward. That's me. Valak gave him a cold smile. You must be brave. Or very foolish. Jake shrugged. Maybe both. Valak's smile faded. If the creature bonds with you, you become a threat. Its species was made for war. It obeys only the one it bonds with. That power is not allowed to fall into human hands. Jake didn't blink. So what happens then? Valak said calmly. You'll be arrested. The beast will be destroyed. And the girl, she'll be returned to her masters. Sierra's eyes widened. Jake clenched his fists. She's not a prisoner. She's Valari property, Valak said coldly, just like the beast. Jake didn't say anything, but the beast inside the cage suddenly let out a low, dangerous growl. Its eyes locked on Valak. The commander stepped back. You see? He said. It's already begun. That night Sierra found Jake in the shipyard sitting on a broken crate. I warned you, she said softly. Now they'll come for us. Jake looked at her. Then let them come. Sierra's eyes softened. You're a strange human. Jake smiled. And you're not as cold as you pretend to be. They both laughed, just a little. But deep down, both of them knew. This was only the beginning. And far away, in a hidden chamber of the Galactic Authority, red warning lights began to flash. A computer voice said, Subject Warbeast Type 7 has initiated dual bonding with unknown human subject. Probability of command override. High. Recommendation. Immediate elimination. Secrets beneath the fur night had fallen on Varan 6. The twin moons cast pale light across the city, but in the shadows, danger had begun to move. Inside a small storage bay near the edge of the spaceport, Jake sat on the floor, watching the creature sleep behind its energy cage. It no longer growled when he came close. Instead, it gently lowered its head every time Jake approached. It trusted him. But tonight something was different. Jake felt it in the air. A silence too heavy. A chill too sharp. Even the guards were gone. Sierra appeared in the doorway, her cloak wrapped tightly around her. "They're planning something," she said. Jake stood up. "Who?" She stepped closer. "The Authority. Commander Valak. They've called for a purge team. They'll kill the beast and you." Jake's fist tightened. "Why me?" Sierra looked at the creature, then back at Jake. "Because you broke the rules. You touched something that was supposed to remain wild." Jake looked at the beast again. "It doesn't deserve to die." Sierra stepped forward, her voice softening. "Neither do you." Jake sat down beside the cage. "I've been thinking about him." "Him?" Sierra asked. Jake nodded. "You never gave him a name." Sierra's face was unreadable. "He was born in a lab, raised as a weapon. A number, not a name." Jake reached through the bars and gently touched the beast's fur. "He deserves one." Sierra watched in silence as Jake whispered, "I'll call you Kyle." The beast lifted its head slightly, almost like it heard and understood. Sierra's breath caught. Her voice trembled. "You really don't know what's happening, do you?" Jake frowned. "What do you mean?" She looked away, her eyes dark with memory. "When my people found the war beasts, they were already dying out. The Valari used them in battles, controlled them with pain and fear. But sometimes, rarely, one of the beasts would bond with a master by choice." Jake listened closely. Sierra continued. "When that bond happened, it was unbreakable. The beast would die for the one it chose. It would kill for them too. That bond was sacred and dangerous." Jake's heart pounded. "You think Kale chose?" Sierra shook her head. "No, I know he did." Jake looked at Kale, who now rested calmly at the bars, eyes half closed. Peaceful, trusting. Sierra whispered, "But there's more." She pulled something from under her cloak. A glowing mark, shaped like a symbol, burned into her wrist. Jake looked closely. It was not a tattoo. It was alive, pulsing with light. "This is the mark of the chosen bond. I got it when Kale saved me during a Valari trial. That's how he became mine." But she took Jake's hand and slowly turned it over. On the inside of his wrist was a faint golden mark just beginning to glow. Jake's eyes widened. "It's starting," she said. "He's bonding with you too. That should be impossible." Jake's voice dropped. "What does that mean?" "It means..." Sierra hesitated. "Kale has two souls now. Yours and mine. That has never happened before." Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from outside. The floor shook. Lights flickered. A red alarm rang out through the spaceport. Sierra grabbed Jake's arm. "They're here." Kale stood up. His muscles tensed. His golden eyes burned like fire. From the hallway, metallic footsteps marched closer. Heavy, precise, deadly. Jake looked at Sierra. "Can he fight?" Sierra whispered. "He was made for war." As the door burst open, a squad of armored soldiers stepped in. Their leader raised a blaster. "By order of the Galactic Authority, you are all under arrest. Step away from the cage." Kale growled, a deep, terrifying sound that made the walls tremble. The lead soldier hesitated. "Shoot the beast." But before they could fire, Kale roared and slammed through the cage, shattering the glowing bars into pieces. The soldiers opened fire. Kale moved like a blur. Bullets bounced off his armored skin. One soldier screamed as he was thrown into a wall. Another was knocked out cold. Jake grabbed Sierra's hand. "We have to run." But Sierra stopped him. "No, he's not just protecting himself. He's protecting you." Kale stood over Jake, snarling at the soldiers. Then something unbelievable happened. He spoke, not in words but in thoughts. A voice echoed in Jake's mind. "You are mine now, human. I protect what is mine." Jake froze. Sierra stared wide-eyed. "He has never spoken to me." Jake looked into Kale's eyes. "We need to get out of here." Kale gave a slow nod and turned to clear a path. As the three of them ran into the shadows of the spaceport, Jake finally understood. Kale wasn't just a beast. He was a being with choice, loyalty, and a heart. And now, that heart beat for two people. The Protector's oath sirens screamed across the skies of Varan 6. Searchlights danced over buildings. Patrol ships zipped through clouds like hungry wasps. Soldiers spread across the city, hunting one thing, a war beast and the human it chose. Jake, Sierra, and Kale ran through narrow alleys and cargo tunnels. The war beast moved with perfect control, like a shadow with claws. Despite his huge size, Kale was silent, focused. Every time they turned a corner, Kale checked ahead before letting the others pass. They stopped inside a dark maintenance shaft. The air was thick with dust and steam. Jake leaned against a wall, breathing hard. Sierra pressed a small healing patch to a burn on his arm. "You okay?" she asked softly. Jake nodded. "I've had worse." Kyle stood beside them, still and watchful. His glowing eyes scanned the shadows. Sierra whispered, "He's protecting you without even thinking about it now. The bond is complete." Jake looked at the creature. "He said I'm his. What does that mean?" "It means," Sierra said quietly, "he'll fight to the death for you, even if it kills him." Jake frowned. "I didn't ask for that." Sierra looked at him. "That doesn't matter anymore." Far above them, Commander Valak stood inside. "A control room." He watched the chaos unfold on a screen. "Seal the ports," he ordered. "They won't get off-world." A young officer turned. "Sir." The creature broke through energy bars rated for Titan-class prisoners. Valak's eyes narrowed. "Then it's worse than we thought. That thing isn't just bonded, it's evolving." The officer swallowed hard. "Shall we call in the enforcers?" Valak nodded once. "Yes, and send word to Valari High Command. Tell them the war beast has made a second bond." Back underground, Kyle suddenly froze. His ears twitched. His massive body tensed like a drawn bow. Jake whispered, "What is it?" Kyle's voice echoed inside his mind again. "Hunters. They are near." Sierra gasped. "Not soldiers. Trackers." Within seconds, strange sounds echoed from the tunnel walls. Clicks, growls, metal on stone. Four shadows moved fast, creatures in armor built for one job: kill beasts. Kyle turned to Jake and Sierra. "Run!" Jake stepped forward. "No, you'll be killed." But Kyle only looked at him once, then gave a soft growl, like comfort. "My oath is you." With that, Kyle charged into the tunnel. The ground shook from the force. Sierra grabbed Jake's hand and pulled him into a service hatch. "We have to trust him." As they crawled through the dark vents, sounds of battle exploded behind them. Roars, screams, metal crashing. Jake kept, looking back afraid of what they'd find when it was over. Then, silence. Minutes later, they emerged into a massive docking bay, abandoned and dusty. An old cargo freighter sat in the corner. It was rusted, patched, and barely looked spaceworthy. Sierra ran to the controls. "We can fly this, barely, but if Kale doesn't make it, we'll never leave." Jake turned to the tunnel entrance. Then, footsteps, heavy, slow, steady. Kale emerged, blood on his fur, deep cuts across his chest. One arm hung limp, but he was alive. Jake ran to him. "You're hurt." Kale lowered his head and pressed it gently to Jake's chest. "I live because you live." Jake felt a strange heat on his wrist. The golden bond mark glowed bright, hot, pulsing with energy. Sierra stepped forward. Her eyes shimmered. "He gave everything to protect us. That's what a war beast's oath means." Jake looked into Kale's eyes. "Then I'll make one too." He touched the mark on Kale's chest with his hand. "As long as I breathe." "You are not alone." The mark on Jake's wrist glowed brighter as if responding. Sierra stepped between them and activated the ship. "Let's get off this cursed rock." As they flew up through the clouds, enemy ships chased them. Turrets fired. Lasers lit up the sky. Kale roared, planting his claws into the hull. He took position as the ship's last shield, his own body. Absorbing hit after hit, Jake grabbed the controls and shouted, "I'm taking us into the storm belt." Sierra yelled back, "That's suicide." Jake smirked. "Or freedom." The ship vanished into the storm, a deadly cluster of plasma clouds and lightning pulses. Behind them, the enemy ship stopped. No one followed. Inside the freighter, the storm made everything shake. Sparks flew. The engines screamed. Cale lay on the floor, burned but breathing. Jake sat beside him, placing a hand on his massive paw. Sierra looked at both of them and whispered, "You didn't just bond with him. You changed him." Jake looked up. "No, he changed me." The escape through the stars. The freighter shook violently as it passed through the storm belt. Outside, purple lightning arced across the blackness of space. Energy clouds swirled like angry oceans. No sane pilot would fly here, but Jake was not just a pilot now, he was a protector. Inside the cockpit, he fought the controls with both hands. Sierra stood beside him, reading readings from a cracked screen. "Shields are gone," she said. "Engines, overheating. One wrong turn and we'll be space dust." Jake gritted his teeth. "We only need to make it through, then we'll be free." Behind them, Cale lay stretched out near the loading bay, badly injured. His fur was scorched. His breathing was slow. Every jolt of the ship made Sierra look back at him with worry. Jake finally yelled, "Hold on!" He dove the ship downward through a twisting tunnel of gas. Plasma lightning exploded to the side, but the ship made it through. Then, suddenly, silence. The ship floated into a calm, open patch of stars. Jake slumped in the seat, breathing heavily. Sierra smiled. "We're out." But Jake wasn't smiling. He looked at Cale and saw blood pooling under him. They rushed to the back of the ship. Cale was still conscious, but his body trembled. The wounds were deep. Energy burns glowed along his side. "He protected the ship with his body," Jake said, falling to his knees. "He saved us." Sierra opened a metal case. "These are medical stims, alien tech. I used to use them on injured soldiers." She injected one into Cale's shoulder. Nothing happened. "Try another," Jake urged. She did, still nothing. Then, Cale opened one glowing eye and looked at Jake. "It is time. For truth." Jake blinked. "What truth?" Cale's voice echoed weakly in his mind. "I was not the only one made. There are more, and one of them is hunting us." Sierra froze. "You mean another war beast?" Cale gave a slight nod. "One who never bonded. One who hates all life." Jake asked, "Why is it hunting us?" "Because it believes I betrayed our purpose. It wants to erase me. And you both." Sierra looked at Jake, her face pale. "If that's true, it's not over. It's just beginning." Later, Jake and Sierra sat in the dark cockpit watching the stars pass. Jake whispered, "He didn't have to protect us. He could have run." Sierra looked down. "I think Kyle was never a monster. He just needed someone to care." Jake nodded. "I don't want to run anymore. I want to protect him. The way he protected us." Sierra looked at Jake carefully. "You're more than just his bonded partner now." Jake turned. "What do you mean?" She hesitated, then slowly reached for his hand. "You're mine too." Jake was silent. The ship hummed softly. "Not just because of Cale," she said. "Because you saw me. You saw him, and you didn't turn away." Jake looked down at their hands, then up into her eyes. "I'm not going anywhere." Suddenly, a loud bang echoed through the ship. The lights flickered. Alarms flashed red. "Something hit us," Sierra shouted. Jake ran to the scanner. "No, ships nearby." Another bang. Then a metallic shriek. Something was inside the hull. Cale stood again, injured but alert. His eyes flashed like fire. "He is here." Sierra looked confused. "Who?" Jake's eyes widened. "The one Cale warned us about." Then they heard it, a deep inhuman growl from beneath the deck. Something large, something angry. Jake reached for a weapon. Sierra grabbed a light source. Kale moved slowly toward the cargo bay. And then, the floor burst open. A massive shape leapt up, black armor, crimson eyes, claws like knives, another war beast. But this one was different, twisted, scarred. Its mouth dripped with dark fluid. It looked at Kale, then growled in a deep, hateful voice. "You failed your purpose, brother." Jake stepped forward. "Who are you?" The beast snarled. "I am what he was supposed to be. A weapon. A killer. You are the infection, and I will cure it." Kale stood tall, despite his pain. "You will not harm them." The enemy war beast roared and charged. The battle for the bond. The ship trembled under the weight of two titans. Jake pulled Sierra behind a bulkhead as the enemy war beast roared across the cargo bay. It was massive, more armored than Kale, its black skin laced with red scars. Its eyes burned with hate, not reason. Every step it took left cracks in the floor. Kyle stood between them, wounded, but tall. Blood dripped from his side, but his glowing eyes stayed locked on the beast. "I will not let you hurt them," Kale said, his voice calm in Jake's mind. The other war beast growled, its voice like grinding metal. "You betrayed our creators. You bonded with prey. Now you die." Kale answered only with action. He lunged. The two beasts clashed like thunder. Claws ripped into armor. Teeth snapped. The ship rocked with every blow. Sparks rained from the ceiling. Cargo crates smashed like toys. Jake pulled Sierra further back, shouting, "We have to help him!" Sierra shook her head. "We can't fight that. Kyle, he has to do this alone." Kyle fought with everything he had, but he was weaker. Hurt. The enemy beast knocked him into a wall. Kyle coughed blood but stood again. The scarred war beast laughed. "You're soft now, you protect instead of destroy." "Look what it's done to you," Kyle growled. "I am stronger because I chose to love." The enemy snarled and pounced, its claws aimed at Kale's throat. But before the strike landed, Jake stepped in. He held a shock blaster aiming straight at the attacker. "Back off," he yelled. The beast paused, surprised. "You dare interfere, human?" Jake's hand shook, but his voice was strong. "He's not alone anymore." With a hiss, the war beast swiped the weapon away. But that pause was enough. Kale launched, upward, grabbing his enemy and slamming him into the ceiling with a roar. The ship groaned from the force. Metal beams cracked. Alarms screamed. Kale looked to Jake and Sierra. "Get to the escape pod. Now." Jake refused. "We're not leaving." "You," Sierra grabbed Jake's arm. "We have to trust him. He's giving us a chance." They ran. The hallway lit up with red lights. Steam hissed from broken pipes. Behind them, the sounds of battle roared on. Kyle and the scarred beast crashed through walls, tearing into each other with tooth and claw. Then came the silence. Jake and Sierra reached the escape pod. She turned. "What if he doesn't make it?" Jake didn't answer. Then a heavy shape slammed into the hallway wall, Kyle dragging the enemy by the throat. Kyle's body was shaking, his eyes dimming. "Go," he said. "I will finish this." Jake stepped forward. "We'll find a way out. Together." Kale looked down at him. A soft growl. His paw reached out and pressed something into Jake's palm. It was a memory, crystal. "If I fall, remember who I chose to be." Before Jake could speak, Kale turned and charged the enemy one final time, both beasts crashing through the floor. Into the ship's power core. A massive explosion rocked the entire vessel. Jake and Sierra were thrown into the escape pod. She hit the launch switch. Seconds later, they were drifting through space. Behind them, the freighter burned in silence, its light fading among the stars. Jake stared out the window. His hand still held the crystal. Sierra was crying softly. I didn't want to lose him, she whispered. Jake wrapped an arm around her. We haven't lost him. Not if we remember him. The crystal in Jake's hand began to glow. Kale's voice echoed from it, soft and peaceful. If you are hearing this, then I am gone. But I died free. I died loved. And I died not as a weapon, but as a protector. Jake closed his eyes. A single tear slid down his cheek. And I would do it all again. When legends obey love, the escape pod drifted through space like a small tear in a silent black sea. Inside, Jake sat quietly, holding the glowing memory crystal that Kale had left behind. It pulsed in his palm, soft and steady, like a heartbeat that refused to stop. Beside him, Sierra stared out the small window. Her silver eyes reflected the stars. She didn't speak. Neither did Jake. They had escaped the battle, but they hadn't escaped the grief. A few hours later, the pod was picked up by a passing merchant ship. The crew, made of various alien races, had heard the emergency signal. When they pulled Jake and Sierra aboard, they expected fear, panic, chaos. But what they found was silence. Jake didn't say much. He only asked for a place to rest and a way to send a transmission across the stars. Sierra remained close to him, as if the silence was the only thing holding her together. Days passed. News of the destroyed freighter spread quickly. Rumors filled the galaxy. 2 war beasts fought to the death above Varan 6. One of them protected a human and a Valari girl. The bonded creature chose love over violence. And then, something strange happened. On distant planets, in ancient forests, deep caves, and hidden ruins, other war beasts awoke. Long-dormant creatures opened their eyes, sniffed the air, and heard the echo of Kale's final roar. It wasn't just a cry of battle, it was a call, a message carried through memory and blood. On a peaceful green moon, Jake and Sierra stepped outside the small cabin they had built together. The air was fresh. The wind smelled like new beginnings. It had been months since the escape. They now lived quietly, far from war, far from commanders, far from pain. But Jake never stopped wearing the crystal, and each night, he would replay Kale's final message. I was made to destroy, but I found something stronger than orders. I found a reason to protect, a reason to care. I found love. Sierra once asked Jake why he listened to it every night. He answered, because I need to remember that even the dead can leave light behind. Then one day something changed. Jake was fixing a solar panel outside when the ground began to tremble. He stood looking toward the horizon. Trees shook, birds scattered, and from the forest came a low, deep sound. A growl, but not a threat. A greeting. Sierra ran out of the cabin, eyes wide. Jake, you hear that? He nodded. Then they saw them. 3 war beasts, different from Kale but just as large, walked slowly out of the trees. They stopped a short distance away. Their eyes glowed softly. Jake took a step forward. Are they? Sierra whispered. Kale's kind. One of the beasts stepped closer. It knelt, and from its mouth came a voice, echoed not by sound, but by thought. We heard his final bond. We felt his final choice. Jake's chest tightened. He changed us. Another beast added, now, we follow you. Sierra gasped. They're not just beasts anymore, they're awakened. Jake looked at them, then at the crystal in his hand. He remembered Kale's words. Legends are not born. They are chosen. Jake stepped forward. Then we build something better. Together. The beasts lowered their heads. We obey love now, not fear. Years passed. The cabin became a village. The village became a city. Humans, aliens, and war beasts lived side by side, not as owners and pets, not as weapons and masters, but as family. The bond that Kyle had created became a movement, a legend, a truth passed down in stories, songs, and starlight. Once, there was a beast everyone feared, until he chose to love a human. And by that choice, he changed the galaxy. And, far away in places beyond maps and memory, his roar still echoed.